evening. Wanted to take a couple of moments just to look at some good moments from the scrimmage on Friday and try to reinforce some of these ideas that we've been discussing in training and have been sharing with the families as well. So looking at our game idea, so we shared this in the meeting back in August, and it said in order to. So as we look at the way we tackle the game and the words we use, it's important that there's a why or a purpose. So as it says in here, we build up our play in order to create space. We're going to attack in order to exploit the space we create. Defensively, we organize in order to control the space the other team plays in, and then we press and put pressure on the ball in order to deny space or deny their ability to exploit the space that they're looking for. So, game very much works in opposites. So, if you can kind of tell the trend between building, organizing, attacking, and pressing, so they are linked. So, if we look at the game review piece, so we're going to look at evidence of learning. I feel like in the organized phase, we showed better collective understanding of our shape. This takes time. Typically we train in a quarter of a field, so to kind of paint some of these bigger pictures, it's harder to see, so the games are a great way to do that. I also think in the build phase of our game, we show positive action from halftime talk. So the things we discussed at halftime, at halftime we also asked the players that are helping and supporting the team that can't play due to injury or they're as subs. They're looking at 3 positives that we do in 3 growth areas. And then on Friday, we also asked them to count how often we collected 3 passes in a row. So using that as a gauge of how often we're on the ball, how often we're collecting passes. So halftime, we were able to use that evidence and those points to talk about areas of growth. And then at the end of all that, what are our additional areas of growth? So from a pressing standpoint, so when we go to put pressure on the ball, we need to continue to improve our individual defending in order to regain the ball. So shape is getting better, but our individual action to go win the ball is an area of growth. In the build phase, continue to stress those individual habits that allow us to think of what's the next best action. The next best action could be I stop, stand still, I stay on the ball. The next best action could be I carry into space to attract pressure. Next best action is I move the ball quickly because I'm under pressure to the next free player. But all that is based on our ability to see. So individual habits in our positioning, our body profile, our first touch that allows us to see the next best action. And then build, I'll often say this, and this is something you'll hear more, is consistent positioning provides consistent solutions. So again, it's not about being sewn to certain positions. Different people can pop into these positions, but the consistency of these positions allow our players to be able to predict and play in the future and understand that we have some solutions that we can count on because we know a teammate's going to be in that space or a teammate will be occupying this part of the field. So that part's really important. So consistent positioning allows us to have consistent solutions that we can lean on. So we look at our shape. So we're the team in white, and as we kind of look at what Friday looked like, we talked about shaping up in this idea of a 4-1-4-1 defensively. So a back 4 with a holding midfield player, and then a midfield line of 4, and then a striker. So there's your 4-1-4-1. And what we talked about is we want to deny the spaces in between each other. So as you can see, these gaps that exist between our lines of pressure or our lines of play and our teammates, we want to make sure that the ball does not go into those spaces. Additionally, we talked about, all right, how do we know how compact we want to be? How tight do we need to be? Again, a lot of players are used to this idea of man marking, which we talked about before. So staying connected to a teammate is not necessarily their first thought. They're looking for where's my player? Who's my mark? So what we discussed at halftime is that we want to, when the ball is in the middle of the field, can we occupy 3 of the middle channels and leave the 2 widest channels free? So in this image, you can see we're willing to stay connected to deny the passes inside to allow their outside backs and their wingers to have the ball. Now, if the ball happens to move to the side, the same idea exists. We're going to shift and move as a unit based on where the ball is. So this is called ball-oriented pressing. So where the ball goes, we go. So you can see we shift across with layers of depth. And as we do this, we're right on that edge of occupying the 3 widest channels to the left, and we leave the 2 widest channels to the right free. And the idea being that if we really compact and we get good pressure, by the time they would be able to find a player in those open vertical zones, we could shift and manage that as well. So we're willing to free or leave free 2 zones or 2 vertical zones in order to occupy 3 to stay compact and tight, which makes us harder to break down. So a couple of the images is just a good example of us shifting and moving. So if I freeze it and you think of that image you just saw, you can see we have our strikers trying to cut the game in half, our right winger starting to step out, and you start to see that line of four shifting across. And this is in the beginning of the game, so very early days. So the opposition, and again, knowing that Alberta's 2012s want to try to play in and connect, it was a good challenge for us to stay connected because they want to play through us. So in this case, we're able to intercept the ball. So from our way of defending, we want to be able to intercept, and that allows us, when you intercept the ball, our first touch can go forward and we can play forward versus having to always like run backwards towards our own goal. So we win the ball going forward. This gives us a chance to go first pass forward. And now if you look at the amount of body shapes that we have facing forward, so our entire midfield line of four, so our left wingers facing forward, our strikers on the ball facing forward, our right wingers going with them, both attacking mids behind the ball, facing forward, moving forward. And that's important because if you look at the amount of blue players, they're now turned and facing back towards their own goal. So this creates a really good moment to then drive at their remaining center backs. And this happens from picking a ball off and being able to go forward quickly. And in this case, we're able to create a finish on goal, which again is the ideal, right? We win the ball facing forward. Can we attack forward? So really good example of that. Next one, similar situation where we get to paint some of these really good pictures. Now, what you'll see is our holding midfield player who's going to arrive behind that first line of four. It's Mikhail in this case. Typically, we would have her not come all the way over and so wide. So it's a good example. You can see how she's coming over to help defend, but you still get this really tight line of four. So if we had that 3 vertical channels that we just showed in the prior, our line of four plus the striker plus the holding mid are all occupying those middle 3 channels of play. So really good patience, and it's important that we remain patient because the blue team is not scoring a goal from this space on the field, so we're making them have to work harder to break us down and try to play through us. Most solutions will become, can we play around them? Because if you take away the middle, they'll eventually want to play around. So we just have to be patient. Again, they're still not scoring. Now, this is that growth area. So we talked about our pressing. We'd want Hazel or our 9 to really become aggressive here, and this would be a good time for us to win the ball. So we've got them sucked over to the sideline. We've shifted over. Her body shape would allow her to deny it. Still, it doesn't matter because they're not scoring a goal from here. We're able to shift across, as you can see us stay connected as we move. Now, this engages that next right winger to go put pressure on the ball. And we force a ball forward. So if you look at this, even though we don't win it, Stella puts good pressure on the ball, which forces a bigger, kind of less accurate ball forward. And as we talked about, our right back is now ready to step forward and be aggressive with their defending because we were able to get pressure higher up the field. And that allows us then to go forward and put pressure on the ball there. Now in this case, do a slip and everything that comes with it. It becomes their ball, but in the end, our pressing, our jumping, how we get to where we want to go is a really good example of the shifting part. Okay, the next one here. Oh, we'll go. No, this one's going to be a little bit longer because I think the positive to this one is that you see multiple phases. So we talked about like the different phases of build, attack, organize, and press. You can see some of those linked together. So another good organized start from their goal kick. Good example of our shape. You see that 4. You see the holding mid sitting in the pockets. You can see our left back ready to jump and defend when our left winger goes. Now again, some of this, we get good pressure from behind, forces it wide. It'll get good shape. We'd want this to be more aggressive to try to win the ball here if we can. But again, at this point, they're not threatening us. They're moving sideways and they're forced backwards often. So moving sideways and backwards. So they're not really a threat. Again, a good example of now as this gets in the corner, we step forward and get more aggressive and get higher. We force a blind forward pass. Good back tackling. So as the ball went past us, we went back to work and now we link and play. So the good thing about this is Ailey's first touch and her eyes are forward. So she gets the ball back and she's looking, can I play forward? Based on what she sees, there's a lot of blue there. So the decision is like, it's not on, so I'm going to go the other way. And this is a growth area. So we've played it to the left center back, who's going to play across to the right center back. And what we would ask is that we'd want our holding midfield player, who's probably a little bit too far away, she's about 20 yards away, to be closer to Olive at center back to then be able to help support while she's going to be under pressure. But the pressure arrives to keep her in half the field. She steps into that space. It's kind of clunky. She connects her pass, but this isn't going to be clean, which is okay. So we try to play blue win the ball, put one in behind us. Now, what I like about this is this would be like one of those emergency type movements. We're racing back towards our goal. Ailey has some composure to get her eyes up and see where Ingrid is. Ingrid receives away from pressure, and now we're playing out the other side. So even there, this is a very brave first touch from Ingrid because pressure's coming and she's going to open up, which again is somewhat stress inducing because if pressure works and it's really tight, that means she's exposing herself to the goal. But Ingrid is brave to open up. Now we would want Olive facing forward so she could see where pressure is, and that's that individual habit that we just talked about. Now, Olive gets faced up though, has a little movement where she has a little positional interchange with the right back who comes inside, but still there's a lot of composure here to play, which is credit. So even with some positional changes, pressure comes, we decide it's still not good to play forward. But this is a good moment of defending to now we're being patient to build. And once we're able to carry forward, Clara does a really good job of finding that time to play forward and attack at speed. So now we're trying to exploit the space in behind. So you're going to link that. We first were pressing high to deny. We regained it, had a chance to reset, and then create our own moment to go forward and attack at speed. The last one here is actually the build up to the goal we earned on the penalty kick. So a reset back to the goalkeeper. So in a situation where we're not able to face forward and play forward, so we use the player that has time and space to face forward. Ailey is sprinting to open up. You can see the back line trying to get their shape. Now, we talked about this with our goalkeepers. Our center back is facing the wrong direction. Now, in this case, we're able to progress and it leads into a goal, but we would prefer center backs to see forward so they can see where the pressure is so that they're able to make their decision as the ball arrives. And again, we deal with it. Ailey gets faced up, plays a little good ball into that space there, but now we start to move the ball across the field. Good link play out the other way. And a really well-timed ball that allows Stella to get on the 1v1. And the best thing about this is if we look at kind of their shape, because their left center back was high, worried about Hazel arriving in, that created this little space for Stella to run off the back and behind. And Stella does well to time her movement to stay onside and then obviously be dangerous enough to cause a penalty and score the penalty. So if we kind of look at how the flow of the video went, looking at that structure and the defending, but you kind of see how then it allows us to regain the ball in really good positions to play again. And that's the benefit. Zonal defending allows you to then move into the attacking phase with positions already in hand, which is the positive. So again, a lot of good moments. We're going to continue this week to focus on some of those individual habits, the build piece to link with some of our really good defending.